I can see the angel coming for to sing his song. I can hear the drummer drumming. He's coming and it won't be long. Hear the cry across the nations. People wanna be free, yeah. Free to leave the great plantations. Free to be who they want to be. I see it squeeze out freedom and it won't be long.
Everybody, it's Everett with Ohio for Freedom, and it is Saturday morning. Good Saturday morning to you. It is the 7th of August and a very exciting month in the year of our Lord 2021. Please like, please share, please subscribe. I wanted to come on here this morning and ask this simple question. So what comes next? What's the next part of the plan? Because there is a plan. Lots of people have plans. There's lots of plans, but if there is an overreaching plan, what is next? And so today, I've never really talked about this Rockefeller Foundation document that was put together in 2010, Operation Lockstep. And I'm going to pause for just a moment to say hi to Tina, hi to Juanetta, hi Pierre. And I just want to kind of go through that, observe a few things. I'm not going to make any claims, fact checkers. I'm just going to read some stuff. But anyway, I think what I'm going to do is just jump on. I will announce that we're doing some internal maintenance on the Ohio for Freedom website. It should be ready to view here a little bit later today, but there's a couple of nuts and bolts inside things that we had to take care of. So all is well. I'll say hi to Melody, hi to Kevin, hi to Sharon. So let me just jump right in. Hey, I'd like to ask this. I like asking questions and getting responses back. Are you familiar? Like, do you feel like you're up to speed with the Rockefeller Foundation Lockstep document? I'm just curious. If you are, please type yes. If you're like, nah, I'm not so sure what that's all about, please type no. And again, that this is not I don't know how to say it. I mean, nobody's better or smarter in it. We know anything about it. I didn't know much about it until I really dug in here a little bit ago. I'd heard of it. And so, yeah, let's just dive into this. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go over here to the screen. And I don't have the pretty picture of the caption of this thing. This is, and I think Pierre's listening out there. Pierre, you would know better than me. I think it's about 57 pages. I could jump over there and find that out right now. I just don't remember, but it's at least 50 plus pages. But this was produced in 2010 by the Rockefeller Foundation. By the way, the Rockefeller Foundation, I don't know about you guys, I am so sick of all these NGOs. We need to dispose of NGOs, and I plan on doing a whole show about that sometime. You know, there's an NGO for just about everything that is creepy in this world. There's an NGO for National Association of State Election Directors that messes with and messes around with our elections. There's all kind of NGOs that are involved, and WHO type of stuff, CEPI, Gavi, a whole lot more that are avenues of corruption in the medical area. There are NGOs that do exactly what the State Department tells them to do to mess with the democracies of other countries. We learned the other night, my wife and I did, listening to an ICE officer that just retired here in the U.S., that when the fake president, who soon to be ousted president, pretender in chief, temporary health in chief, supposedly took charge of border control, they basically farmed it out to an NGO. So that being said, I'm tired of NGOs, but Rockefeller Foundation produced this document, and this Lockstep was part of it. They were presenting several futuristic scenarios, and I'm going to pull this up so I can read it. And I just want to kind of hit some highlights real quick for you. In 2012, now this is produced in 2010, so they're looking ahead. The pandemic, that the world had been anticipating for years finally hit. Unlike 2009's H1N1, this new influenza strain originating from wild geese was extremely virulent and deadly. Let's just skip ahead a little bit. Infecting nearly 20% of the global population and killing 8 million in just 7 months. Man, they love, so they had in place and plan, always love projecting all this, I'm going to call it fear porn, all this fear mongering. 8 million people in 7 months. Right. Now, look, reading ahead, the pandemic blanketed the planet through disproportionate numbers. Though disproportionate, died in Africa, Southeast Asia, and Central America, where the virus spread like wildfire and the absence of official containment protocols. See, even back then, they were selling this idea that governments have to put into place all these restrictive measures to hopefully contain. And you have to have all these like Tom Cruise, like Mission Impossible, jumping on virus one to go from this continent to that continent to interview this doctor to bring this vial to whatever. I don't buy any of that, but I'm going to keep rolling here. Now, I'm looking at the top. I can't tell what page this is. China's government was not the only one that took extreme measures to protect its citizens from risk and exposure. You know, one takeaway from reading this lockstep portion of this Rockefeller document is they go out of their way at least 3 times to really applaud and praise China. And here's one of them. But during the pandemic, national leaders around the world flexed their authority and imposed airtight rules and restrictions, from the mandatory wearing of face masks to body temperature checks at the entries to communal spaces like train stations and supermarkets. Listen to this. Even after the pandemic faded, this more authoritarian control and oversight of citizens and their activities stuck and even intensified. Now, there's a debate as to whether this was like a game plan. People had this planned way in advance, or if you want to look at it innocently, yeah, there are people that think ahead and make predictions and try to think in advance. But think about it. In 2010, if anybody had suggested that people would be mandated to wear a piece of cloth that gets slimy with their breath and breathe in their CO2 all day, would that have seemed outlandish or what? And then you go back there and it says let's get back, what is that? These temperature, even and body temperature checks at the entries to communal spaces like train stations. This is in 2010 that they were talking about this stuff, but I wanted to comment on this last highlighted sentence here. Even after the pandemic faded, this more authoritarian control and oversight of citizens and their activities stuck and even intensified. My overall read of this is publications like this are seeding, and were seeding 11 years ago, the idea of stricter and stricter and stricter global control and more loss of freedom, more and more loss of freedom. I'm going to keep rolling here. Now, and this is what I'm going to read next. This is a notion that to me, they're really were trying hard to sell. At first, the notion of a more controlled world gained widespread acceptance and approval. Citizens willingly gave up their sovereignty and their privacy to more paternalistic states in exchange for greater safety and stability. Citizens were more tolerant and even eager for top-down direction and oversight, and national leaders had more latitude to impose order in the ways they saw fit. Man, I don't know about you, but unfortunately, part of that's true. There are people, and they were right about at least half the population. Half the population has just seemed, in my opinion, to just want to get down on the floor and get on their knees and get down and worship. Please control us. Please take care of us. Please give us more order. But this document, it's as though it's selling the idea that, you know what, to deal with these pandemics and to deal with these scary situations, these evils that can, spill out onto the world, we have to have totalitarianism because democracy just can't move fast enough. Haven't we heard Justin Trudeau say, I admire China because they can turn their economy around on a dime, like green economy? Yeah. China, go check China's air pollution rate, Justin. Go check their water quality rate, Justin. I won't get into organ harvesting and whatnot, but the globalists try to sell this idea that, and even Joe Biden was talking about it when in terms of his relationship with Xi Jinping, saying Xi Jinping believes that, they have the ability to make decisions quickly. And this article 11 years ago, this document 11 years ago, to me, is really trying to sell this idea of acceptance that people say, you know what, I'm willing to give up my privacy. I'm willing to give up my freedom. I'm willing to give up my personal sovereignty if somebody will just take control and protect me. I'm going to keep reading here. I want to we're going to back up. Citizens were more tolerant and even eager for top-down direction. And maybe I can't find it. Maybe there was a quote that I wanted to. Where does it say? Well, that one might gotten out of order in my little sequence there. In many developed countries, enforced cooperation with a suite of new regulations and agreements slowly but steadily restored both order and, importantly, economic growth. Folks, I don't know about you, but to me, it's pretty obvious that the global elites want to be just that small little number that hangs out in Davos and flies their private aircraft, leaves their private strips at their $20,000 or 20,000 square foot mansions that use 10 times the greenhouse footprint of everybody else, jump in their private aircrafts so they can get together and lecture the rest of the world. And the rest of the world that they are lecturing are the peons and the peasants that are there to serve them. Does that make sense? And give me just a moment. There was one quote that's bugging me. I thought I'd highlighted it, and maybe I just hit it for myself. If I keep looking, and here's another one. China's investment in Africa expanded as the bargain of new jobs and infrastructure in exchange for access to key minerals and food exports proved agreeable to many governments. Cross-border ties proliferated. That's just one more example of them going out of their way to praise China. Here's the quote I was looking for. By 2025, people seem to be growing weary of so much top-down control and letting leaders and authorities make choices for them. Wherever national interests clashed with individual interest, there was conflict. And then I'm going to reach down here about the middle of this paragraph if you can see my waving little mouse. Even those who liked the greater stability and predictability of this world began to grow uncomfortable and constrained by so many tight rules and by the strictness of national boundaries. Now listen to this. The feeling lingered that sooner or later, something would inevitably upset the neat order that the world's governments had worked so hard to establish. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't know about you, but when I read stuff like that, I want to throw up. The whole idea of America is that we are endowed by our Creator, by God, with certain unalienable rights. And I was thinking about this. I hope this isn't just a rabbit trail here. But you ever notice all the evil people, they all have one thing in common. They want to take over the world. I mean, it sounds like a Saturday morning cartoon, like when I was a little kid. Take over the world. But they always do. It's what Bill Gates wants to do. It's what Klaus Schwab wants to do. It's what Xi Jinping wants to do. It's what Hitler tried to do. It's what evil people always do. And the disadvantage that we have is that, I don't know about you, I don't want to take over anything. I just want my house, my backyard. I want to be able to go on the back porch in my underwear and shoot my shotgun if I want to. I mean, we just want to be left alone. We want to leave our lives, and it's not in our nature to take over anything. Sure, we want to do good in business, and we want to build, different things, but we don't want to take over and control anybody. And we certainly don't look to government to impose a neat order. And we certainly don't have this concept that, the world is a lot more complicated than it's ever been. And old forms of governments like democracy, where like we the people like run things. It's all got to be controlled by global elites. I am going to go off on a bit of a tangent. Y'all know, if you follow this program, there's one mainstream program that we do watch, and it's Tucker Carlson. And I think Tucker Carlson does a great job covering what he covers. Some problem is there's a lot of stuff that he doesn't cover. But he did spend time in Hungary this week, and he did interview Viktor Orban, the president, the prime minister, the top dude there in Hungary. And the rest of the European Union hates him. And for the sake of time, I'm not going to go to an article that I'd love to show you. But the main reason that they hate him is because he stands up for his nation. He stands up for family and stands up for his nature and stands up for their culture and stands up for their language, and they hate him. And he is not opening up their borders to all these non-Hungarians that don't share the culture, don't share the values, and just want to overrun the country. But you know something else they hate him for? If I go to the article, I'll get stuck there and I won't make it back. One of the things they hate him for and lambast him for is that he banned something in schools. And you know what he had the audacity to ban? Viktor Orban, that fake Joe Biden calls a thug. Viktor Orban banned homosexual and transgender information being shared with elementary school children. He is so intolerant. He won't let transgender education infiltrate the elementary students of Hungary. He refuses to introduce them to transgenderism. He refuses to condition them so that after they commit crimes, the biological males, and they become convicted rapists and sex offenders, he refuses to seed the way that they could say, I don't like being in this prison, but there's some hot babes in the women's prison, and I'm going to start saying, man, I feel like a woman, because that's happening here in California. But that's what they hate him for. That was almost kind of a rant there. So let me do this. I want to see what else is here. Even those who like the greater stability and predictability of this world began to grow uncomfortable with the constraints by so many tight rules. The feeling lingered that sooner or later something would inevitably upset the neat order that the world's governments had worked so hard. I don't know about you. I do not have a concept that the globalist elite had upset a neat world order. I want to get on one other thing, and then I'm going to kind of change direction here just a bit. Now, this is sort of a analysis section of what happened during the lockstep years. They're talking about philanthropy. Philanthropy, grantee, and civil society relationships will be strongly moderated by government, and some foundations might choose to align themselves more closely with National Official Development Assistance, ODA, strategies and government objectives. In other words, what that's saying is you won't be able to tell government from NGOs. I could get off on a whole long tangent here, folks. I said it earlier. I am so tired of these evil tax shelter, tax dodge NGOs. And when faux Biden is faux out of here, I hope that's one thing that is attacked, because our lives have been greatly, greatly impacted. Now, I think I can do this with, I want to go back. If y'all remember, it wasn't that long ago that I talked about the SPARS document, and I want to talk about this here right now. I'm not gonna go through the whole thing, but this is the SPARS document that was created in 2017. And where's that hiding from me? Let me, pardon me just a moment, if you would. If you can bear with me just a second. Where did that go? All right. We're going to grab this, and I'm going to try to come back. Here's my point. I wanted to jump over here, and I wanted to show you that so much of, here's what I'll have to do. I can't bring this up. I'm gonna play you a clip. I'm gonna interrupt it once, and I'm gonna kind of compare it to some things that were going on. But let me play this clip up, get halfway through into it, and then we'll talk about it.
A trial that the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, which is the institute I direct, sponsored, called the Adaptive Covirus Disease Treatment Trial, ACCT-1, was started in February 21st of this year, and it was a randomized placebo-controlled trial. Although a 31% improvement doesn't seem like a knockout 100%, it is a very important proof of concept, because what it is proven is that a drug can block this virus. And I'll give you an example in a moment.
Okay, I'm going to pause right there. Now, hopefully this is not too disjointed here. But one of the reasons for looking at this Lockstep document is I believe that these people have tried to seed in the thought processes and the imaginations of people things they absolutely intended to do. And I'm running short of time here, but next program, I'll just bring it up. I was going to show you this document from the Global Preparedness Monitoring Board, and that their first annual document that was produced in 2019. And it gives all these musts. Nations must. They must. And every single one of those musts includes money. They got to pony up cash. Why? Because of the potential for a release of a naturally occurring or accidentally or intentionally released genetically modified pathogen. It's right in the document, and the head at that time of the GPMB, and Tony Fauci is still on that board, was that Jeremy Farrar, who was instrumental in getting on the phone with little Tony like the 1st of February of 2020 and saying, you've got to say that there's no way that this could have come from a lab leak. So that's kind of the crowd that we're talking about. But the clip that I just played was little Tony touting remdesivir in a blind placebo test. And folks, where would that come from so quickly? Here is what I wanted to show you, and I'm really hoping that I want this to. Okay, this SPARS document that was created in 2017, I know we've talked about this before, but you may have missed it. So they're giving a futuristic scenario of yet another coronavirus, novel coronavirus, and a pandemic. And this scenario was posited in 2017. And here's just a couple lines I want to read to you. At that time, no treatment or vaccine for SPARS was approved for use in humans. The antiviral Calosavir, which was initially developed as a therapeutic for severe acute respiratory syndrome and Middle East respiratory, was one of these several antiviral drugs authorized. So what I'm trying, the thread that I'm trying to tie together here is when little Tony went to the TV sets early in 2020 with this wonderful news about remdesivir, whether it was planned or not, he was playing right out of the SPARS playbook and right out of other playbook. Now, I'm going to go back to this. I'm going to go back.
Looking forward, this is very optimistic. The mortality rate trended towards being better in the sense of less deaths in the remdesivir group. 8% versus 11% in the placebo group. It has not yet reached statistical significance, but the data needs to be further analyzed.
It has not yet reached statistical significance.
The reason why we're making the announcement now is something that I believe people don't fully appreciate. Whenever you have clear-cut evidence that a drug works, you have an ethical obligation to immediately let the people who are in the placebo group know so that they could have access. And all of the other trials that are taking place.
Okay, I want to take apart what he just said, folks, and we're nearing the end of this program here. But okay, so here's little Tony. If he's not acting out of the plan, he's certainly mimicking a plan. And Clostopher, remdesivir, I'm sorry, are we stupid? We can't see a similarity there. But he's pointing to a trial, and this was early. And he's talking about, he said that this took place like started on the 20th of February. And what you just heard him say is, I want to say something because the little people are too stupid to understand what I'm about to say. But whenever you have a trial, that seems to give, it's not statistical yet, but we hope we can manipulate the numbers and make them look to be statistical. Then you have an obligation to tell the people that got the placebo about it so that they can take it. Now, let me say two things about that. First of all, this virus has a disease timeline. It's ridiculous because by the time they would be telling these placebo people this is available, they're either dead or they're over it. Okay. And the second thing is, does that really happen? If you give the placebo people what you gave the other group, then all of a sudden, guess what? Down the road, you can't compare any lasting effects. So I think that everything that he is saying is a lie. I think that he was completely acting out of a playbook. But I want to play the rest of this clip, and then I'm going to comment on that. We're going to bring this in for landing.
Now have a new standard of care. So we would have normally waited.
And I got to stop right there. He's talking about remdesivir, and we have a new standard of care. Can I ask y'all a question? When was the last time you heard about remdesivir? I mean, really, is that what they're talking about? Or even now, are they saying that's the thing? No, not in my. I haven't heard anybody talk.
Several
about
days until the data gets further. Dot the I and cross the T, but the data are not going to change. Some of the numbers may change a little, but the conclusion will not change. This drug happens to be blocking a enzyme that the virus uses, and that's an RNA polymerase. But there are a lot of other enzymes that the virus uses that are now going to be targets for this. This will be the standard of care, and in fact,
okay, I just got to stop right there. This will be the standard of care. And then he was going to go on to say that now that we know that it's even though it's statistically not significant, we're going to make it statistically significant in the future. But we're going to make sure that we're going to add every other medicine that we want to test. We're going to add it on to remdesivir. That's exactly what he was saying, folks. All I'm trying to illustrate here is if you go through that clip and it's 5 minutes, and I hope this is one thing that President Trump says, my gosh, I can't believe I let this guy play me the way that I did, because he was being totally played. You can see that Jane Burks, the scarf lady, just rolling her eyes. But Tony Fauci is sales pitching the American public. And if you go back and look at that clip, what is conveniently in the background, the stock ticker symbol of that. So, folks, my point, and hopefully I think the reason it makes sense to talk about this and to talk about this lockstep is because, folks, if it's not a pre-planned thing, people are taking what somebody else developed and they're trying to act like it's a plan. And this was complete and total propaganda. And so there's nothing that I don't have words in my vocabulary that God allows me to use about Tony Fauci to just describe him as low as I would like to describe. So anyway, guys, I hope you got something out of this. But here's my question. I want to leave you with this because I'm up against the clock, and it's this. What's the next part of their plan? What's the next thing that they have imagined? Because I'll tell you one thing that they didn't count on. They didn't count on the amount of resistance that's coming from the God indwelt believers that are saying no, no, no. They did not count on a great awakening. They did not count on a move of God to raise up his people and stand up his people. So what do they have planned next? And with that, thanks for checking in, folks. And until next time, have a wonderful weekend, and God bless you. God bless your family. God bless the state of Ohio. And God bless the United States of America.